Hello and welcome to Won't Be Forgetting That, a podcast talking about all of the most awkward and embarrassing moments of people working in the arts and entertainment industry. I'm your podcast host, Seb Muirhead, and today we have a guest. They are a comedian, a podcaster, a producer, Tim Batt.
Hello, Seb.
Thanks very much for coming on, mate.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
That's quite all right. So, as I was saying just before we started recording, this podcast is all about the most awkward and embarrassing times that we have in the arts and entertainment industry. I'm just wanting to ask you, there might have been one time that I've watched of yours which was recorded for everyone to see. So, we have this fantastic, I think it was just a pilot on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, would you like to tell the audience what that was?
I would love to. Man, you need a lot of context for this one, folks, so strap in for a tale. So myself and Guy Montgomery, fellow comedian, who actually just won the Sydney Comedy Festival. Can you believe it?
No shit.
Bloody
Congratulations, Guy.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and he also, just to shout out Guy even more, he just won the Fred, which is the highest comedy honour we have in New Zealand. So
holy shit.
It's a big year.
All right, well, we're going to stop this and I'll get Guy on instead.
I've got to shut the fuck up sometimes.
No, I'm joking. But yeah, that's awesome. Congrats to Guy.
So anyway, I get a bit of this this after comedic glow by co-hosting a show with Guy Montgomery. It's called The Worst Idea of All Time, and it's been going for almost 10 years now, which is a terrifying
10
fact.
years.
Yeah, in February, it'll be 10 years. So it was actually, I don't know, kind of early in. We sort of, anyway, the format of the podcast is that we looked at the podcasting landscape and everyone was doing two dudes review a movie. So we're like, okay, what's a twist on a movie review podcast? So we started doing a movie review podcast, but the twist is the movie would never change. So when we started doing it, our format, the expectation is that we were going to watch Grown Ups 2 forever on a weekly basis and just keep reviewing.
That sounds like a genuine nightmare. Like, I think that's actually some rings of hell.
Yeah, exactly. It's very like purgatory sounding, right? Like it's quite biblical. But we got to about, I think, episode 4 and we were like, okay, the eternal thing, no, that's not going to go. Because just anticipating that, it'll drive a man insane.
Oh, so absolutely.
We decided on a year instead. So 52 watches and reviews of Grown Ups 2, and we did that.
Still far too many, obviously, but better than eternity.
Yeah, and we've done that a number of years and changed the movie up. So we've seen Sex and the City, the movie, 52 times, Sex and the City 2. We did a movie called We Are Your Friends. This drew a little bit of attention from corners of the internet and YouTube eventually. Well, actually, it's kind of even weirder than that. This guy emailed me, first off, like a year after we started, or maybe less, and he was like, hey, my name's Andy and I'm a big Hollywood agent and I'd love to talk to you guys. And I was like, okay, bro. So
that sounds definitely real.
Exactly. So I just like kept ignoring these emails, but he was sending them, like I got about half a dozen emails and I was like, stop, like, this is on par with Nigerian prince scam.
Please
via
just
email,
send me your bank details. I'll upload you all the money.
Exactly. So our mate Ollie Seeley, who is a commercial and TV video professional, creative dude, he was going over to LA to do a shoot, I think. And we were like, hey, can you like see if this dude's real while you're there? And so he went over there and I think he talked to him. He was like, you boys need to answer this guy's fucking emails because he's he's at ICM. Like, this is a big agency and he wants to talk to you guys. And we were like, okay. So I emailed him back, a lovely man called Andy Stabile, who worked very hard for us. And he got us in front of all kinds of TV networks. Like, we went over to LA a few times and we did these live shows. We kept going over and doing live shows. But while we were there, he would get us on pitch meetings with, like, we pitched to Comedy Central, something. There was like, what was the one called? We actually got an offer from this channel that used to be the TV Guide channel, but then it turned into something else. They gave us like a series offer. We got a couple of offers from different networks, but then right at the last minute, YouTube swept in and we're like, hey, we want to work with you guys. We'll give you a pilot, and with the expectation that it'll go to series, but we'll fund the pilot and have a look and see how we go. So that was like wild that eventuated. Like, real,
that's crazy.
Real
back
dream
when
thing.
YouTube Red, was it, when they were starting to do all their pilot series?
Exactly. This was part of that. The shortly lived pornographically titled YouTube Red business unit.
Very bizarre marketing.
So we did it. We did this pilot. I'm sorry. I'm just desperately trying to remember the name of a guy who was involved, who I really should.
Oh yeah, that's totally fine.
But
It's always nice to give a little shout out.
Yeah. Nah, it's his last name's not in there, so I'm not going to delve into it. But anyway, look, we had this fantastic team that we were working with. We shot the pilot. The premise was going to be, we kind of took the DNA of the podcast, but you need to amplify it for a visual medium. So
Of course.
we developed this idea called method film reviewing. So we would bring the same dedication to reviewing a film that like a Daniel Day-Lewis would to acting in a role. And that led to us... Guy was actually living in New York City at the time. I flew over there for a week, and we lived in a sewer in New York for a week, slept there. We could eat nothing but pizza, and we just kept reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows so that we could properly assess it. And we watched it like 20 times.
Watching that film every single day.
Yeah, multiple times a day.
Yeah. And it's not... For anyone that hasn't seen it, I mean, obviously finish this podcast first, but then it's still up on YouTube just now.
Yeah.
Go and watch it. It's not an Airbnb in a sewer or anything like that. It's a proper dank, rotten little sewer.
There's legit. Yeah. Some funny details on that. So we kind of handed it to YouTube, and they were like, this is pretty fucking weird. We were like, good weird? And they were like, nah, you're not getting serious with this. But it was also sort of tied up, I think, with the fact that that was right around the time when they were stopping funding series.
Yeah, I don't think that was much, like, I don't think they have anything left, actually.
No, so that whole kind of originals thing that was going on, that was sort of just ending then, or at least that sort of chapter of it. So we got caught up in that. And then it was sort of, it's a co-ownership with our producers, and they were shopping it to other people around the state. So for ages, it just sat on a shelf, and I was like, ugh, I want to fucking show everyone the pilot that we made.
Yeah, of course.
And it took it was over a year, it might have been 2. And I was like, gals, I don't think anyone's going to buy this fucking show. Can I put it on YouTube? And they were like, okay, go for your life. And so we put it up, and you can watch it now. And it's like, I'm really proud of it. It's awesome. It's not.
You should be.
It's not perfect, but it's a good showcase of kind of like what the idea was and us doing it. And we had a blast.
It's just something a bit different as well. Like with your guys' podcast as well. Like it's bizarre, but for the right reasons, I think.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
But there's this one scene that I remember from it as well, and we've spoken about this endlessly on past podcasts, is how truthful and just cutting children can be.
Yeah.
But you got a load of kids to come in, and they all started, and I think one of the kids just asked why you're doing that.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? I think you should just see you guys.
It was just perfect because it's the obvious question. It's the question. It's the central question. It's like, why would you guys do this? There's always the question with the podcast. It's the question with the pilot. It's like, why are you doing this? And so to hear it through the mouth of I think that guy was about 11. It's just perfect because there's no kind of, it's just very earnest. There's no sense of irony. It's not leading to anything. It's just genuine kind of confusion and bemusement at like what these dudes are doing and why they're living in a sewer for a week.
And there's no correct answer to it as well, especially from the perspective of a child. You're like, I don't have anything to say to him.
We've had too long to mull over it because we have been doing it for so long. And I sort of feel now like the question is the answer. Like the fact that the question exists is the reason we're doing it, which is stupid and circular, but that's comedy for you.
But it's great as well. But then it's just every now and again, because presumably like you guys are away from home and you're living in a sewer. Yeah. So sometimes when you're not at home, you don't have your creature comforts. The mental state's not always the best.
We didn't shower. Like people have asked us a lot of times over the years, like, was that real? This is how real it was. When we first got there, we had some pre-production meetings before we got into the sewer, and they were like, here's where we'll shoot. So here's the sewer. And then across the road, here's the hotel. And I was like, what do you mean? And they go, well, when we wrap for the day, you guys can sleep there and then crack off. We'll get you back in the sewer. And I was like, nah. If we're telling everyone we're sleeping in the sewer, we're sleeping in the sewer.
Yeah, we're not Bear Grylls.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So they had to like find these big industrial fans because apparently the air quality wasn't good enough to sleep in. So they
wow.
they had to add all of this sort of infrastructure for us to live down there. But hand on heart, like everything you see in there is real. We go to surface level at one point.
Yep.
Spoiler alert. But like we eat nothing but pizza, and we are down there we're sleeping in the sewer, we're living in the sewer. I was a bit disappointed that more wasn't made of this in the pilot, but it legitimately flooded on the second to last night we were there.
No way.
It just filled up with water because it rained so hard. And
I presume that's nice, clean water as well. Being in the sewer.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just all of those things added in, and then just the cutting question from the mouth of a child.
It was great having those.
I thought that was beautiful. I mean, I'm sure it was rough in the time, but it's fantastic view.
I loved it. It was so stupid. It was such a stupid thing to do, and I just like, you know how usually you kind of appreciate the humor and absurdity of stuff after the fact, that tragedy plus timing. I was living in the tragedy, and I was like, this is the dream come true. This is so stupid. I can't believe someone's paying us to do this.
Yes, there's moments like that as well where you're like, what is happening? Especially like comedy, any kind of like recorded media, like film, television, anything like that. Sometimes you're doing things and you catch yourself and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, well, it'd be fun to look back on, or at least it's a good story.
100%.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. So anyone that hasn't seen that, what was the name of the pilot as well?
I think it's just on YouTube as the worst idea of all time YouTube pilot.
Oh, was it? Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Like anyone listening, check that out. It's absolutely fantastic watch.
Thanks, Seb.
No, but yes, that was also like a nice little segue into it. Well, I mean, first off, we've got our first confirmed sewer dweller as a guest, which is a big thing. That's very exciting.
You've been holding out for that on the show?
I know. I genuinely am going to finish up now. This is my highlight. But you said you came with a couple of little stories as well. Usually the way I like to do it is save the biggest, most embarrassing story for the end. Okay. Or is there any particular way that you like to tell these?
Well, I've got a like famously bad memory, which is bad for doing a podcast where you watch the same movie, because I just end up saying the same shit quite often.
But then at least you can enjoy the movie every week. Yeah, like the first time you've seen it.
A lot more than most people, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I can only remember kind of two funny things ahead of time, but I have a feeling that once I start going, maybe some more will flood into my head.
Oh, that happens. I said this before we started recording. I'll say this to everyone every single week as well. That happens all the time. And then I'll always, without fail, get a message afterwards being like, oh, I've just remembered all this horrible stuff.
Yeah.
Then you get to sit up at night time just remembering it, being like, this has all just come back and I can't get rid of it now. So you got that to look forward to tonight.
I bring up the memory thing because I want to say, for the record, like, I've eaten shit countless times on stage.
I think we've had plenty of stand-ups previously as guests, and they're just like, it's just par for the course.
You have to. You have to. I think it's important. Or else you're not kind of like, you're not trying enough new stuff, I think, if you're not dying.
If you said you haven't as well, then generally you're probably not that good.
That is a really good point as well. But I think the people who say that they never bomb often lack a bit of self-insight as well.
Or they're 60-year-old comedians that have been doing the same bit for 40 years and just working on cruise ships now. One of the two.
God bless them. God bless them.
I know. Like, at least they're getting work.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Look, if you're doing what makes you happy and getting paid, power to you.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, anyway.
Okay. Well, and I don't even have a whole lot of details on this, but like, okay, I would say the year is probably 2017 would be about right.
Okay, so fairly recent then.
Doing the Melbourne.
6 years ago now, yeah.
I was going to say, it isn't that recent.
I don't know what year we're in anymore.
Yeah, the whole pandemic really threw things out.
It did a bit, didn't it?
I'm at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
I guess the context for this is, so my friend group in New Zealand of comedians, a lot of them are currently part of a thing called Snort, which is a improv group that are
cool.
Beloved. They're actually just wrapping up at the end of this year. They've been going for 10 years, and
no shit.
It's insane. They did one show, and I remember it. Like, they did a show 10 years ago. It was started by a few people, but my friend Donna Brookbanks was very kind of central to getting it together. There was a bunch of people from Christchurch. They kind of growing up seeing there's an improv troupe in Christchurch, the Court Jesters, and they're very sort of beloved in Canterbury. And anyway, they were like, we'll try this experiment. We'll do it at Basement Theatre, which is a really cool Central City, sort of quite risky youth theatre, youth-ish theatre. They put it on and it sold out. And so they just put it on every Friday night and it's sold out like every single show they do. Has sold
shit.
out from the get-go, like from day one.
That's impressive. I mean, people would kill for that.
Exactly, right? And with improv, like, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? It's usually just bring all your friends along to the first one and then try and fill 5 seats for the
precisely
shows.
Yeah, exactly. And like some, it's sort of been part of a lot of people's journeys who have gotten quite big now. Like Guy obviously already mentioned. Rose Matafeo is another person who people might be familiar with.
Who's over in the UK now?
That's right.
Yep. Making a real killing of it over there as well.
Yeah, Starstruck is her big international claim to fame now, which is a great series, which has got a couple of seasons. Alice Snedden, who you'll see in that series, who co-wrote it with Rose as well. Nick Sampson's another person who's UK based now, who started as part of that collective. They were doing this thing where they go over to Melbourne every year and do fan fiction comedy. It was basically the same group of friends, and it was as it sounds. They would do like, sex stories about Harry Potter, and then Optimus Prime would show up.
Oh no shit! So all improvised as well with that.
They would write them. They would write the stories and bring them. But I mean, they may as well have been. It was really entertaining. But they were often like sort of finishing bits while on stage and stuff like that.
That sounds great, honestly.
It was awesome, and it got huge because Will Wheaton. God.
That is a name, yeah?
No, Will Anderson. Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Will Anderson sort of found out about them, took them under his wing a little bit, and really blew up the audience numbers. I don't know why I'm giving so much backstory, but I don't know. Felt important.
No, it's good. It's good to know.
All my mates kept going over to Melbourne and doing like Snort, and they were doing fanfic comedy. They were like drawing huge crowds. They were looked after. They were part of a team. It was all good. And they were doing their solo shows as well. So they were often like springboarding off of that and doing their solo shows. And all those people I mentioned, like Rose and Guy, Eli Matheson, they were like building a following, doing their solo shows as well. And I'm like friends with all those people, but I'm not part of Snort. And I wasn't part of fanfic comedy. So I'm like this kind of sort of cousin, stepbrother to this collective. And I would go over and do Melbourne to do my solo shows. But I wasn't part of the sort of festival selected bit of the fest. I was part of the open fest. So I go and find my own venue. And I did it for years in this place called Kaz Raytops, which people in Melbourne might know if they're comedy fans. It's in Collingwood on Smith Street.
Awesome.
And they were awesome, like great venue. They looked after me, but it's this little subterranean room. It's pretty small. And I just remember so many times in a general sense, just going over. The show was shit. I was like building it while I was there. I'm not an amazing comedian now, but I certainly was worse back then. It was bad. It was bad stuff happening in that room. And I'd spend all day
early on in the comedy career as well.
Yeah, I should have been better for how long I've been doing it, but it was like a few years in. But, you spend all day just trying to get anyone, because I don't have any sort of platform or name or call to fame. So you're just trying to get any bums on seats.
Exhausting. I think most of the work that people seem to do during Comedy Festival is actually trying to get people into the venue. Yeah. I think the show's the secondary thought for a lot of people.
It's so grim. And it is. If you're kind of like interested in comedy, that's an important thing to understand. It's very depressing, but
when the irony as well.
Part of this sort of bit of your career where you're not quite big enough to maybe have good representation or publicists or that kind of thing. Like you're just slogging your fucking guts out trying to get anyone to see your show.
Especially if you're not part of like, I want to say maybe the big 5 venues as well, where people just turn up and like, I'll go and see a show at Festival Hall or whatever.
Exactly.
Or Trades Hall even. And then like people are like, oh, there's a pub, and then I suppose I'll go and see someone, I suppose. And then people go down that maybe aren't the biggest fans of comedy, and they're like, I don't get this. And we've had plenty of past guests, friends of the podcast, that have done the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, which I believe is the second biggest comedy festival in the world as well.
Yeah, after Edinburgh.
Yeah. So you can only imagine what that's like for thousands of people that come over internationally or even Melbourne based as well, to be honest with you. That must be exhausting.
Yeah, it's pretty full on.
Yeah.
And there's probably like a better way to do it, but that's what I was doing for years. I had a way better time this year. I got in a festival managed venue, so I had a way nicer time. But like I genuinely, the sort of crux of this is I do remember performing my 1 hour solo stand up festival show to 2 people once.
Oh,
Did the whole show. 2 middle-aged women, which is like also not the sort of expected typical crowd for me.
Crowd, I know, right? So when it's that situation, 2 people, do you go out? And I'm bad for this. I'm like, oh, if there's less than 10 people in the crowds, just coming from a theatre background myself, and be like, oh, this is pointless. But do you go out with the idea of like, I'm really going to win these 2 over? Or do you let the demons take over and be like, this is fucking terrible. I'm just going to go out and just do this anyway, but I'm not happy about it.
You can fall apart after the show, but those people paid their ticket money. And it's also, it is a little bit easier said than done, but I do always try to internalize the fact that every single opportunity to go on stage is so valuable. Like it is.
Yeah.
It is gold. Stage time is gold. So it doesn't matter if you're doing an hour show to 2 people, fucking do it. That's more flight miles, you still get to work on the muscle. And they were really lovely. But
thank God.
It's so tough. I always, I probably shouldn't say, I don't think I've said this on a podcast or anywhere before apart from my mates, but like I don't really enjoy going to a stand-up show. Like I always get kind of confused that people do it. And I think a lot of comedians are like that because we're on the other side of the transaction where we get to go and perform the comedy. It's like, but why the fuck would you turn up and watch this?
Well, we can edit that part out if you regret saying that afterwards.
Nah.
But I get that as well. I'm the same with theatre and stuff like that as well. And I'm like, especially if it's like, it's an hour-long show and maybe you're taking a punt and it's not the best show out there as well. You're like...
Yeah.
That hour could have been used for a lot of different things.
I mean, thank God people do. Thank God people are wired
Everyone
differently
listening,
to me.
please do come to the shows. But yeah,
But I don't get it. No, I love seeing a good show, but if I was coming to see me in 2017 or whenever it was, it's just like, why are you here at all? But they were really lovely. But I'm very aware of the weight of responsibility that is put on an audience, and it's divided.
Absolutely.
Among how many people are there. So when there's just 2 people
between
there,
2 people,
that's a lot of load. So I remember consciously, like, I would make eye contact here and there, but I was sort of delivering the show above their head so that...
Just to the back of the room?
Yeah. And I talked to them, during bits, but I've seen it done, particularly with newer comedians... I guess the other end of the scale, right, is when you go to an open mic and you see a newer comedian attack the 4 people who showed up to the show. Because they're on the back foot and as a performer, you're nervous because there's not enough people and it's going to be hard and like this could go really badly. But you just have to fight the instinct to lash out because those people, they're the only people in the world who are doing the thing you wanted to have happen.
I know.
They're the good guys.
They don't have to stay as well. That's the secret. Like
100%.
They can leave if they want to. I mean, I feel terribly awkward if I did that, but there's plenty of people that are just happy to walk out.
And the other thing that I remind especially newer comedians about all the time is if you attack them, right, the few people who came to the show and you sort of focus all your anxiety and rage and disappointment and sadness on them, they're never coming to stand up again. You're not just hurting like that night. You're they will write off going to live comedy. People are terrified of going to live comedy because they're going to get picked on. But it only really happens at open mics, in my experience, when it goes badly anyway.
Yeah, so you've just burned that entire industry for them.
Hard out.
Like, that would also be like, I don't know, I feel like that'd be a real rough one as well. I wouldn't like to be in the audience for that.
It's not
exactly. Enjoyable. It's not.
You got to
funny.
think of the audience at all times. Really, it's such a. I mean, it's true of all art forms, but I think with comedy, really more than anything I can think of. It really is all
'Cause you have
about
that
the audience that's there.
immediate feedback as well.
Yeah.
I work in film and television a fair bit, so you're like, if you do something crap, there's no one there saying it's crap or not. It's like 8 months, 10 months later, something comes out and you're like, that wasn't great.
Yeah.
But you don't have that immediate silence or feedback. But then also on the other end, obviously, of having the immediate laughter as well. So
Totally.
yeah.
It's a very different
scary.
transaction, isn't it? It's your sort of your responsibilities are a bit different. So I think when you have like if you're working in film and television or anything else, music, where you've got more time to sort of you're producing something that will come out when you're done.
Yep.
Writing, painting, whatever. The responsibilities and the transaction is different, and it's like it's a bit scarier because you can spend a truckload of resource like time and energy and money on a thing, and then you show it to the world and they're like, no bueno, I don't like this. And you're like, oh shit, there's 3 years gone.
I know, right? That's the irony of it as well. Like, you spend so much of your life or time and money and like mental health on these things, which people are inevitably just going to sit on their phones and mildly pay attention to.
Well, I'll share a little like philosophical thing that I've always held on to. I don't know kind of where I got this from or if I made it up myself to sort of protect my emotional core. But
that's good.
I look at everything I do, like in the creative sense, is just me refining a skill. It's just me learning something. So like every single festival stand-up show I do, it's like, okay, well, this is this year's one, and so I can hone my joke writing and performance and audience get just all the things that make up stand-up comedy. I never consider anything I do to be like, this is the big product, this is the big end result of all my years of work. It's like everything is a work in progress for me at all times.
That's a nice way of looking at it. I mean, it's fantastic for yourself personally as well, but I think sometimes people can maybe see you once, like you were saying, they're just those people that have turned up to that one show and that's just how they're gonna remember you forever as well, which is, I'm really bad for having that in the back of my head all the time, but that's a really nice way of looking at it.
You're not in control of that. Not in control of that.
That's a good way of looking at it, actually. Like, you're not in control of that.
Yeah,
nice. I like that.
I've really internalized over many, many years, just reminding myself there is a little sphere of things that you can influence, and it basically is a circle very tightly around yourself. So it's like your actions, what you say, what you think, how you react to scenarios. But as soon as you step out of that circle, anything else that happens, you don't have control over that. So it's just important to remember.
Especially when everything's recorded now as well, and everything's out to the world all the time, so people can find that at any point. So that's a nice way of looking at it. But this is all far too beautiful and earnest
beneficial
and nice and
all right. Well,
I want to hear about this horrible experience you had with your snort friends. No,
let me tell you a story about when a night I honestly at one point thought I was going to get killed by audience.
Oh wow. Is this, sorry, I'll just jump back quickly as well. Was that the end of the snort, our friends when we were over?
Yeah.
In the Melbourne Comedy Festival?
Yeah, that was just to give a bit of backdrop on how well everyone else was doing while I was struggling away in Collingwood to two people.
It's not sad as well. It's just like, it's when you get home after some of those nights, you're just like, I'm paying so much money to be here.
Oh, yeah.
Money
you lose money doing the festival, you eat shit, you get 2-star reviews, everyone hates you, you hate yourself, you get depressed.
You've got the worst diet in the world. You're
100%.
staying in the shittiest little Airbnb or somebody's couch or something like that, and it's just go and see some comedy, guys. Honestly,
it is hard to maintain perspective when you're in it, but it almost impossible, but it is a good thing to do from a development point of view.
It is. I was incredibly lucky that I grew up around Edinburgh, so doing the Edinburgh Fringe for myself, it was a lot easier than a lot of my friends have done it since then.
Man, I can't imagine.
Flying over there.
I've never done it because it just looks so expensive to go from New Zealand.
Oh my God. Like, you're throwing money down the drain. And I mean, like, obviously it's, like you were saying, developmental, and it's good to be seen by certain people. And I think just the culture and like actually hanging out with a lot of your friends over there is nice as well. But you can do that here for free. So
there's nothing like it. Don't get me wrong. I would love to do it one year. I kind of feel like that ship might have sailed now because I've got a kid and stuff. So it's a little bit harder to disappear for a month. But it just, the reason I haven't done it till now is it just looks so goddamn expensive. But anyway, the night I almost got killed. Do you want to hear about that?
Yeah, I would love to hear about it.
So I had performed at the Classic, which is New Zealand's only like full-time comedy club.
Awesome.
And has been for years. It's on Queen Street, which is the central street in Auckland. And this is many, many years ago now. This must be... I'm basing this on who my girlfriend was at the time. It must be 8 years ago.
Okay.
So
how many girlfriends back was that?
Only one.
Okay, cool.
I'm married. So I did a show. Someone in the audience was a bit rowdy. I've got a 3-strike rule with hecklers where I kind of like will address them gently once, gently with a warning on the second time, then be like, hey man, shut the fuck up on the third one. Yep. And then if they are still doing anything after that, I just go to town on them. And so this person who, if memory serves, because I did have a run of a few of these, was a drunk middle-aged woman. Because they always seem to be the person who would upset the show at the Classic, was some 50-year-old woman who'd had too many vinos. And she was yelling out.
They do love to interact with the show, and a very non-interactive show as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on those white women when they come in. You got to keep a fucking leash on them.
Yeah, especially they've got their one big night out and they want to destroy everyone else's night, apparently.
Yeah. So there was a bit of that going on. I went to town on her. There was a guy in the bar. So the way that it works at the Classic is you got sort of like the theatre.
Yep.
And that's set back from the street. So it goes street and then bar and then theatre. So you go through the bar.
Okay. So you got a separation from the bar as well. Yeah, nice.
And so I was hanging out in the bar after the show and a guy came up and he was like, that was fucking awesome, dude. You're so funny. I want you to do my friend's bachelor party. And I was like, no. And I was like broke as hell at the time. I think it was just when I stopped doing radio full time and went into stand up. So you just got to say yes to absolutely everything. I was like, hell yeah, dude. So took his email address, sorted it out. And the night came. It's in this really industrial part of South Auckland. It's not even South Auckland. It's out of like the greater Auckland region. I think it was in Waiuku, which is just like factories and shit.
Oh, wow. So do you have to travel a little bit to get out as well? Nice. Yeah. That's always sketchy.
So my girlfriend drove me down there and got out. It's sort of like, I didn't quite realize. I just had the address. I was like, yeah, we'll fucking Google Maps. It'll be sweet. So then, we're driving out of the suburbs, then into some rough parts of Auckland, and then out of the rough parts of Auckland, just into nothingness, into this like highly industrialized.
And I presume you're just getting more and more anxious.
Yeah, I'm like, oh God.
Just going out into the middle of nowhere to get murdered now, right?
Exactly. So we get there, we get to the address, and it's literally a factory. It's like a metal work factory.
Like a converted one, or active during the
active.
daytime? Wow, that is a strange place to have a bachelor party.
So I go in there, and there's maybe a dozen dudes. And the thing about these types of bachelor parties, I've seen them like a couple of times.
Yeah.
The age range is always incredible. There's there's some dudes there who probably aren't legally allowed to buy their own grog. But then you get like Uncle Dave's there who's 76.
Yeah.
And they're all just
wild.
it creates a very dangerous sort of an atmosphere because they sort of rile each other up. And that was happening. So they were early on into the night when I arrived. And I was like, Jesus Christ, okay, what's the deal here? The guy who kind of booked me was like, okay, so, we're playing a couple games, then we'll get you to do your stand-up in like an hour. And I was like, all right. So, like, have you got a microphone? Have you got a stage or anything? He's like, nah. I'm like, have you got a mic? He's like, no. I was like, have you got a spotlight? He's like, no. And that, to be fair to him, I guess if you're a civilian, you don't know, and that's kind of on. No. Like I should have, but I was so new into my career. I was like, yeah, they will have something sorted.
Yeah, of course, because that's what you expect. Like you turn up to gigs all the time, even open mics and stuff like that. They've got the setup.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's not in the stand-up world, not that I am personally, but you kind of need that slightly elevated platform first off, so people can see you.
Yeah.
You need a microphone so people can hear you, and you need some lighting so people can see you.
Yeah.
Like illuminated. And so if you don't have any of them, you're kind of just a guy talking loudly at a group of people.
Yeah, exactly. And in this
Yeah.
case, I'm a wet behind the ears mid-20-year-old dude who's talking to this bunch of drunk factory workers in Waiuku. And
Bunch of drunk steel workers. Nice.
it was honestly so scary. So I kind of was just like, fuck, it is what it is.
Yeah, of course.
And just it got to the time, started yelling a comedy set to them.
Wow.
While they're just, so we're all just on the same level. We're all just standing on the same level. Just, you know.
Were they seated? Were they standing?
No, they're just
okay.
standing.
So they're just a group of standing around.
I'm just yelling
16 to
at a
80-year-old
group of men
Yeah.
trying to do stand-up comedy. It's not going well. I get about
Fair.
12 to 15 minutes. I think about 12 minutes in. I'm booked
Holy
to
shit.
do like half an hour or something. It's crazy.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
First off, 12 minutes in is fantastic. Like, that is genuinely impressive.
I could be wrong,
Anyone
but that's, as my memory serves, is about
No,
that.
no, I'm blown away by that. I would have got 1 minute in and be like, I'm just going to go and sit in the dark car park and wait for my girlfriend to come back and collect me. So had she left as well? Had your partner at the time left?
Yeah. She bailed.
So you've got no way of escaping.
Correct.
Fantastic stuff.
I think she actually had a job on that night, so she had to go and do something. She was in theatre
she's
at the
not
time
even
as
on
well.
call. Like, you can't call
Sort
it.
of in a arranged time, she was going to swing back and grab
Oh,
me after
no.
she'd done something. So I yell at the guys for like
Yep.
12 to 15. It doesn't go great. I call it in. I go to the guy who booked me. I was like, listen, man, just pay me half of what we agreed on.
Yep.
I did half a set and we'll knock it on the head sort of thing. And I kind of am sad that this happened so long ago, so I don't remember some of the other finer details, but there is
Yeah.
the next bit I remember in particular. So he was like, okay, I understand. That's fair enough, which is great because, you know, like some dudes would have been like, we booked you for fucking half an hour, get up there kind of thing.
Pushing you back up there for the last 18 minutes.
In which case I probably would have been killed. If I had tried to persist any longer than I did. These guys were not here for it. They were not having it. They were not enjoying me doing what I was doing.
So, like, one very important question. Did the Buck or any of the other party know there was going to be stand-up?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That is not ideal.
Yeah.
You have to, it's very specific situations you need for performances.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you just want to stand around and shoot the shit with your friends, and then there's this man that you've never met before.
Yeah.
And presumably aren't aware of, is just yelling jokes at you, I can understand why they might be a little bit confused by that.
So then the stripper turns up
Oh, of course.
out of nowhere. And these so then I kind of get privy to the real animal nature of these dudes.
Oh no.
They're not good guys.
Oh no.
It wasn't, so the tipping point was one of the dudes produced from I don't know where a stun gun, which I think are illegal in New Zealand. Like, I'm not even sure if you're not a cop, if you're allowed to sort of possess them here.
That would definitely be a grey area, but don't be having that.
Don't
regardless.
be having that. Don't be having that in Waiuku at a stag do after that many beers, after like a whole day of drinking.
Yeah.
So he pulls out a stun gun, and then I get very nervous about what's going to happen. I'm like, are they going to tase her? Are they going to tase me? They're going to tase each other. Like, no options are good, but there is, I guess, like a pyramid of good to bad. And so she very wisely has come with a guy who's there to make sure that no crazy shit goes down. So I didn't know that. So I sort of like checked if she was all right. Then met that dude, and I was like, hey, you've got this under control effectively, right? He was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, sweet. I'm a bounce. And I just left. I just left and waited in the cold for the girlfriend to come back.
On a scale of like 1 to 10, how terrified were you by the end of that as well? Because I would
The
have.
stun gun was the scariest bit. Because it was a very sort of straight line from, they're very drunk and rowdy,
Yep.
they hate me, and then stripper appears, they're placated, but have gone very excited, and now a man has produced a weapon. So those things coming together did not fill me with confidence.
Yeah, that is fair enough. And I believe stun guns are known as like less lethal weapons as well. Like they're not safe by any stretch of the imagination. So,
well,
God, that
but
would be
that's
fucking
almost
terrifying.
a problem. So, like, if someone pulled out a handgun, right? I feel like there's enough people in the group to be like, "Hey, Stu,
no, yeah.
put the fucking handgun away." Like, bad. No, don't do that. But because it's a stun gun, I think people are a little bit more inclined to go.
Oh, we've seen
Stun guns
Jackass
are fun.
shoot this guy in the butt. Yeah.
Exactly. But, you know, people have died from heart attacks from them.
For sure. Or even
not
just
possible.
falling over and smacking your head on the ground as well. Like,
Which was concrete because we were in a goddamn steel factory, you know? There was a lot of shit around that could go wrong.
did any of the other guys interact with you at any point during that as well?
From memory, the guy who booked me kind of like was he was sort of the most normal dude there. And I think he sort of, he let me off the hook by doing half the book time and was very fine with that. So I think he had a situational awareness that this wasn't going to be a good thing to push. And from memory as well, he was sort of the guy who was like, hey man, no one's going to like tase the stripper, right? So I was sort of, making sure that was okay before I left. And I think I was interacting with him. So
Jesus. So I didn't mean to laugh at when you said taste a stripper, but just that absurd.
No, that's funny. That's a funny sentence.
To ask something like that is beyond me. I mean, like, I've only ever been to one or two stag parties. I've had plenty of friends that have done like similar things to yourself as well, been booked for them, but never to the extent of possibly being murdered in the middle of nowhere in a cold factory. So
I think asking
never
around
a positive experience from what I've heard.
getting booked for I don't want to call them corporates, it's too great a word for that, but it's like a non-club or bar environment where someone is privately booked.
Private gig, yeah.
Consistently, that's where the worst horror stories come from. And
it's that one person that likes you.
Yeah.
That brings you into a situation where either they don't know that some sort of entertainment's coming or they just don't care. Yeah. Everyone's just there to get drunk and push each other around and wrestle under a table.
Exactly.
Shoot each other with a stun gun.
For example, yeah.
Yeah.
And I keep seeing these videos online of like, dudes like pouring vodka over each other and then tasing and then it like catches light if it's too alcohol. I don't know. There's a lot that can go wrong.
No, I don't think there's anything that can go right with that, to be honest with you as well.
It's true.
And I mean, like you were saying before, it's not a corporate. So like anyone that's not aware as well, corporate gigs basically just like a private company books you. You'll go and do their end of financial year drinks or something like that. And a lot of the time, you can speak for yourself as well, Tim, but a lot of friends of the podcast have said that they're often pretty rough as well.
Oh, they suck. They're horrible, but they pay well. And that's why you do them.
Yes.
They often, like, corporates keep you afloat. So you sort of go in and grit your teeth and bear it.
Yeah, you just kind of, no one's really paying attention, but you're happy enough to get paid for it.
Do you often share stories of woe on the podcast? I'd love to hear a horror story from you.
Oh, I've shared so many of them over the past however many episodes it has been now. So I don't want to retread too many of my previous stories, but I do have. It's not my story. I do have to apologize, but a very similar one in the vein of a corporate gig. So, friends of the show, Rouge, which is a fantastic circus for adults. So there's a lot of adult themes in it. And I hope that they don't mind me telling this story as well. But they got booked for a corporate gig for the medical board in Geelong. They've told the story on the podcast before as well, so I'll run through it really quickly. But they are very adult themed. So they went out and did their show, had a little halftime break, and the person that booked them ran up and just asked if there's no more adult themed stuff in this, right? And they're like, oh no, it gets way worse. And then frantically she was just like, okay, we have to change that. We have to change that. You can't do that. And I'm like, surely a little bit of research would be welcomed when you're booking this kind of stuff, especially when it's advertised as like circus for adults. Because I'm always amazed by people that turn up to things or book things like that where you're like, they're not quite sure what it is.
Yeah.
Because having done a fair bit of theatre myself as well, I'm always amazed by, because you can just hear people in the audience as well. So at least in theatre, they're quiet, for better or worse in these situations. But they always just, like, they'll go over to their friend and they'll whisper something about you. And I'm like, I can hear you.
Yeah. That's wild, eh? That people just for some reason think if you're on a you're still 2 meters away from them, but if you're on a stage you can't hear them for some reason.
Especially in some of the smaller theaters as well. So like I've spoken about this in previous podcasts as well, but for some of the theater shows where I've got my kit off for, and people just openly talking about your genitals like 5 meters away, and you're like, cool, thanks
adults.
I can hear you. Yeah, I know, right? You're like, talk about it in halftime, maybe.
Yeah,
you don't have to
at
talk
a minimum.
Yeah.
This is what cars are for, guys.
I know, right? Which is always a great way. Like, yeah, never talk about it in the lobby after a theater show as well. Waiting until you're in the car.
I'm a huge proponent of that.
I did one theater show. Must have been 5 years ago now, and it was like it was what it was. It was a great venue, which when that's the most positive thing you can say about it is something. Yeah, but one of the cast members, one of my friends in the show, he was walking home behind 2 guys that were at the show that night as well.
Oh,
and
no.
they didn't realize he was there. And they were just walking and they're like, that was fucking dog shit. And then they just complained about it as he walked behind them, and they were both going to the same tram stop. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. Like,
yeah.
What can you do at that point?
It's a horrible situation, but they've done the right thing by waiting till they're outside to have that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always like, that's a great, anyone that's working in theatre or TV and film as well, wait until you're off the set, you're removed.
I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, bitch about it on the way home in the car. Don't do it on set. Don't do it when there's other people around.
Yeah, I'm so sensitive to that. I've got, another tale that's come to me.
Yes, beautiful.
So on one of these trips to Los Angeles that Guy and I used to do, like basically annually, when we do a live Worst Idea of All Time show and pitch to TV shows and to TV networks and that, got booked on this legendary comedy show called Hot Tub, which...
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Kristen Shaw is one of the creators and co-hosts of the show with Kurt. I'm going to screw up the pronunciation of his surname, but Brannickler. That's bad. He's awesome. I watched a special recently. It was fucking great.
Sick.
He rules. And so, yeah, this is their show. It was like a really big deal. And Todd Barry was on the lineup, and it was just after he'd released the special that I really loved called The Crowd. I think it was called The Crowdwork Tour.
Crowdwork, yeah.
And so I was like thrilled to bits to be on this show. It was freaking awesome. And so the place is packed. The venue is like wall to wall. There's people sitting, on the carpet in the front.
Oh, holy shit. Do we have like a rough estimation of numbers as well? Like,
it's like 150 or slightly above, I reckon.
Decent number for a gig, yeah.
And it was in a space that could not hold that many people. So it's just, it's real wall to wall, which is great for comedy. Like, the downside is it gets very hot very quickly. It gets a bit sweaty. The air gets a bit stale. So you don't want the show to go on too long. But in terms of vibe, like, fuck, you want to pack people in like sardines. It's a good thing
absolutely.
for comedy. So I got up and was doing my set, and just as I got up, a guy, I think this is how it worked, he like crossed the stage and came and sat down and then broke a glass. Like just as I got to a punchline of one of my first things. So it really kind of like derailed my set. The set went okay, but it was so loud that it kind of fucked the thing up. And not only that, but after he had done that, he got up and left again, presumably to like get another drink, I guess, because he had just smashed the glass. Sense. So then the show, this was at halftime, I think, actually. I went upstairs to the green room in the venue. And I'm pretty sure this is right. My memory serves me correctly. It was definitely one of the comedians, and I'm pretty sure it was Todd Barry doing this. I kind of walk into the green room, I'm very confused by what I see, because Todd Barry is standing over someone who has their pants down and their ass out, and there's bloodied toilet paper all around. And it turns out what has happened is the guy hasn't dropped a glass. He sat on top of a glass and essentially ripped himself a new asshole.
Oh my God, that's fucking horrible.
The reason why he had left again was because he had cut himself so deeply that like he was bleeding. He was bleeding a lot.
Oh my God.
And so I walked into the scene where one of the comedians, I'm pretty sure it was Todd Barry himself, was like cleaning this guy's wound with vodka because that was the only sort of sterilized substance that was around with a high enough alcohol content to do anything, to clean up this guy, before they put a bandage on him to make sure it wouldn't get infected. But the big claim to fame there was I did so well at Hot Tub that I ripped a guy a new one. You know?
Fucking hell. That is a horror story. That's like genuinely.
It was
like,
and it was a fucking first date. That's right. He was on his first date with someone.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Fuck, I should get that guy on the podcast. Poor guy.
Oh,
If he's
man.
not passed away from that injury just out of embarrassment.
There's got to
like
be.
that.
I mean, there's enough details there that he's out there and remotely findable. This was a long time ago, but dude, if there's someone out there who lives in Los Angeles who went
That
through
has
a
two
first date-
arseholes now.
Exactly, because you're not going to forget the night you're on a first date and sat on a glass and lacerated your butt
be like-
at Hot Tub.
If it's a beer glass or a wine glass as well, because that stem's there, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly,
I need to
dude.
know more details. Fuck, that would, I mean, just on so many levels, that would suck. But
It's bedtime.
fuck, that would be a great second date or like a marriage story if you went on a second date with that person.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Also, what a thing to walk in on as well.
That was
all
the
the
thing.
classic Hollywood stories. You just got
I mean, I'm all hyped up anyway because this is like a among the better comedy, probably the best live comedy show I've ever been performing at, in the hottest lineup, and top areas there and stuff. And I walk in and it's like, what the fuck is going on here?
just dabbing this poor audience member's arsehole.
Exactly.
Poor guy. Oh, that is great though. I mean, not for him. That's a great story. Again, like we were saying, not great in the time, great afterwards.
I reckon it's great. He walked out of the venue. He had a limp, but he walked out of there on his own accord. I reckon it's fantastic. What a night. He won't forget that.
Wow. Oh no, you couldn't. I think he's still in therapy for that as well, by the sounds of things.
I really hope
definitely
they-
checking where he sits down afterwards.
Yeah, big time. As you say, though, I really hope they're still together. That would be so nice.
That would be it as well, huh? And then they'd ask Todd to do the
officiating
at the wedding. Yeah. Well, I think that's us come to our time as well, Tim. Thank you so much again for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.
So we've got Twiowat, or Worst Idea of All Time podcast.
Yeah.
How far are we into the Fast and Furious saga? Is that the correct word for it now?
I think it is. Yeah, I think that's the right nomenclature. We are currently watching Fast 6, and we're a few in. So this season, I didn't explain at the start, but we're doing all the Fast and Furious movies, but we're doing the franchise in reverse order and watching each one according to the number it is. So we started with Fast 9. We watched that 9 times. We did F8 8 times, and so it goes. So right now we're on to 6. And at some
six
point,
times as well, huh?
we're going to get to watch what everyone claims is the best one once to cap off the season.
Look, I think I've seen maybe 3 of them, and I don't know if they get. Well, I suppose they must get better after.
It's getting better for us going
okay.
backwards. They get worse going up.
Maybe that's how you're meant to watch them then.
I think so. 6 is a fucking treat after 7. I tell you what, 6 rocks.
So are you doing the spin-offs as well?
We did Hobbs and Shaw. We did Hobbs and Shaw for a live show in Melbourne. We just watched it once, and that was fun. It was a fun movie.
It must be fun just watching a movie once as well, to be honest with you.
It is very confusing though, seeing Hobbs and Shaw, which is a buddy comedy. Now we're watching Fast 6, which introduces Jason Statham, and he is a very bad guy, and his brother is also like hyper villainous and responsible for a lot of bad activity
Horrible
for the
stuff.
group, and then they just team up. But anyway.
And then they're best friends, but you know how those films are. It doesn't matter. If you don't have a name in the credits, you can die.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
important.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unnamed extras killed in movie, that is.
They have no currency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, touch wood. I had a flashback, but I think there was actually a Deadpool movie where one of the stunt people got killed, but we don't need to get into that. That's a real bummer of a tone to end the podcast on.
Yes, I'm a stunt performer myself. So
Are you really?
Yes, I am.
Holy shit, you must have the best story. What the fuck am I doing? Flabbing my...
No, trust me. A lot of stunt performing at my level is getting kicked over by people far more beautiful than me and then lying in the dirt for 2 days. So there's a lot of me lying in like little rivers because I've fallen in the wrong area, or little ants coming on and running on me and I'm trying not to move
Oh,
whilst
that must suck.
beautiful Hollywood people are talking over the top of me.
Have you had like gotten bitten by red ants and stuff?
Not red ants, just the little so I've fallen near, they're not bullet ants, what are they called? Fire ants. I've fallen near fire ants once.
Yeah, they're bad, right?
Yeah, they're real bad. And I was like, that was one of the hardest days I've ever had on set, is trying not to visibly shake because I was so scared of lying next to a nest. But yeah, it's like a lot of the time it's just...
Did you get got by the fire
No,
ants?
I didn't. Luckily,
Thank
I
God.
covered myself head to toe in mosquito repellent, which I know they're not mosquitoes, but like I must have smelled so bad to them that they just stayed away from me. But like that was terrifying. Like that was... I've been on fire. I've jumped off buildings.
You're kind of in
lying next
control
to
of
those
that,
ants.
though. But
Yeah, I
being
know,
next
that's
to a
the
colony
thing.
of ants, you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always like, I've lived in Australia now for 12 years. I'm Scottish.
I
originally.
thought there was a Sydney sider accent.
No. I'm one of the further south ones than that, or north, wherever Scotland is.
Hey, if you go south far enough, you end up north. So it's either way.
Exactly,
It's just
right?
slightly longer in one direction.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just still have that thing in the back of my brain from growing up being like, everything in Australia can kill you, regardless of if it just hurts or not. You're going to
think-
die from a bite.
That's a good, it's a good sort of attitude to bring into a film set, I guess. Just being
Yeah.
hyper aware of all the threat. It's like you're doing your learner's license every day that you're on set, just pointing out the
Exactly.
hazards mentally.
And then there's some days where I did this one a couple of days ago, and I will finish this podcast, I'm sorry, but I did this one a couple of days ago. I just literally had to like wrestle a few people in a crowd, and that was like, we did that all day, and then I tweaked my neck on the car ride home. And I'm like, God, what's wrong with me? Like, I was fine wrestling all these people all day, and then I just went to check my blind spot, and I was quite cold, and my neck tweaked, and it's still sore today. That's
How-
like
how
3 or
old
4
are you
days
then?
ago. 34.
That's a 34-year-old injury right there.
Oh, tell me about it. But I jumped off buildings fine. I can happily stack it on concrete and I'm fine. But
What's
yeah.
the biggest, and I know we're wrapping up, what's the biggest
Yep.
movie you've ever worked on, just out of interest?
I can't say just now through NDAs. I'll tell you.
Because
when we
it's
stop
not
recording.
out yet?
Yep.
Cool. But so ones that have come out,
Yeah, then I can talk about it.
well, what's the biggest one that has come out that you've been involved with?
The biggest one that I have come out just for stunts, probably, I've never done any movies that I'm allowed to talk about yet, but I don't know. La Brea, that's an American TV show. That's one of the bigger ones I've done. And then some of the other stuff, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk
Yeah,
about
okay,
yet as well.
I don't want to get
Yeah.
you in trouble, man.
Oh, fuck, you're trying to get me fired from these things.
I just want the
Jesus.
juice. I want the juicy tales.
I'll tell, and I hate it when people do this on podcasts. I'll tell you when we stop recording.
You bastard. But thanks.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. But yes, sorry. Check out the worst idea of all time across all of the podcasting platforms. What else have we got coming up?
I don't know, man. I'm cooking up some
Beautiful.
stuff that's sort of. I've developed a new live show which I'm hoping to live stream, which is comedians competing with each other through the medium of slideshow presentations, like PowerPoints.
Oh, fuck yeah. I've been to a couple of those kind of parties before.
Yeah,
They're
it's a good
fucking
time,
fun.
eh? So
Yeah.
I think that'll be really fun. So the first one's coming up soon. I don't think I want to film it, but I won't live stream it. But my intention is it's a monthly show from the second one on. I want to live stream it so that people can all around the world watch, because we got
Fuck yeah.
we got great comedians here, folks. They're funny.
Oh, I really do, huh? And they can keep up to date with you on the socials,
Twitter,
Instagram. Yep.
Instagram. If you go to if you loved what you heard, just go to timbatt.co.nz and all my socials are linked on my
Beautiful. They'll all be
website.
linked in the show notes as well for anyone that's too lazy to do that. And then, yeah, the same as every week for myself, you can find Won't Be Forgetting That pod across most of the social media platforms. Myself, Seb Muirhead, Muirhead, across YouTube and Instagram. If you did enjoy the show, please do rate and review it. I always feel gross saying that, but it really does fucking help.
Embrace it.
Subscribe as well. I know, right? I'm trying to get better with that. But yeah, once again, Tim, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Right, beautiful. Cheers, mate.